Hello, Mr. Pierce.
Hello.
Oh, hello, baby. Maybe.
Yeah, you can call me baby. What's up, baby?
What's up, baby?
What's going on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sometimes when you call those students at Juilliard School in New York when you were young, it makes them a little bit misunderstood.
Yes, it was misunderstood. In New Orleans, that's a term of affection for a man or a woman all the time. What's going on, baby? How you doing? So everybody thought I was homosexual when I said that to a guy. Hey, what's up, baby? They're like, hey, man, I'm not that way. I was like, what are you talking about?
Just to begin, for those who didn't have the chance to read the book, can I ask you to tell us this wonderful story about how you get the part of Mr. Bunk Moreland in The Wire?
Yes, I actually was going down to the audition, and I caught a cab. And the day before, and the cab driver didn't want to take me where I wanted to go. And in New York, the cab driver has to listen to the passenger to say, go this way or that way. And he refused to listen to me, so I got outside the cab. He jumped. I said, don't worry, you don't have to take me. He wanted me to pay him. I said, no, you don't want to take me where I want to go. He got out of the cab, and he threw a punch.
Punching you?
Yes, I threw a punch. That's the one the police saw. And so I got locked up. So I was bitching and complaining about that and telling that story that I got arrested for this fight. This guy didn't want to take me down here. And then I read the scene. And it wasn't until we started shooting that David told me, you know, remember the day you came into audition? I said, yeah, and you started telling us the story of this taxi ride and you got arrested for getting in a fight? He said, yeah. He said, that's when we decided to hire you. None of the reading. You told that story, that's when you got the job as Bunk Moreland.
Yeah.
So that's the famous story of me getting the part.
Because of the anger, or maybe
No.
energy, or
It wasn't anger. It was. It's like the misanthrope, you know, like like a character in a Tartuffe play. The misanthrope.
Ah oui, bien sûr. Le misanthrope.
Yes. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, doing the wrong things, and I couldn't believe it. And I was complaining about it, and I guess the way I complained about it was so animated that it got me the part.
So we should thank this cab driver.
Yeah, I actually should thank the cab driver that punched me on 52nd Street for getting me a part in The Wire.
After season 4 of the show, you thought, I was very surprised about it, about quitting the show, just after you met one young actress named Taylor King. Mm-hmm. Was it really? Really? Did you really think about it?
Yes, I did. I met her and she was at the cast party. And she said, Mr. Pierce, I didn't get a chance to work with you very much, but I wanted to work with you.
She's playing the part of Zenobia,
yes,
the young student of season 4.
She told me that she was going to college and she told me all the things that she was doing. And I said, well, who are you playing on the show? She said, I'm Zenobia. And I was like, well, isn't that the girl that like is out of control and cuts another girl's face? And she said, yes. And I said, we should be telling your story, not that story. You are accomplishing great things. You're young, intelligent, beautiful. You're going to university, and why aren't we telling your story? And in that moment, I thought that we were part of the problem, that we were showing a negativity in the community, in the black community, that we didn't need to see. And then the season came on television, and I saw it, and I realized that violence and her misbehavior was not arbitrary. It was really showing and shedding a light on the dysfunction of our schools and how some kids can be saved and some kids are not being saved. And if we look at where we lose our youth, we can kind of solve it. So at one point I thought the violence was arbitrary. And I didn't want to be a part of that. And that's when I really considered leaving The Wire. And then when I saw the season air on television, I decided to stay on because I knew it wasn't arbitrary, that it had a purpose to shed light on a dysfunction that we needed to change shed light on a dysfunction that was possible for us to change. And so then I decided to stay with the show. But it really touched me that she was a very brilliant young lady, and her story should be told. But at that time, we were telling another story that needed to be told also. So I need to look her up and see how well she's doing now. I'm sure she's doing really well.
The book we are talking here today is very generous and full of wisdom about what could be the role of an artist in our societies.
Mm-hmm.
In the third season of Treme, your character, Antoine Baptiste, becomes a teacher. Could it be something you would like, being a teacher, teaching how to be an actor, how to serve the sacred aspect of art?
My mother was a teacher. I hold teachers in high regard. They are doing blessed work, God's work. It would be an honor to teach. I have taught some classes. I have done some master classes. I'm not a very good teacher.
Why?
I just need to be more focused. And maybe I'm doing a good job. I've gotten compliments, but not good enough for my taste. But that would be an honorable thing. I've done some of it, sometimes to help people as they are working on material. So, like Antoine Baptiste, I have no problem that one day I may be teaching more than I'm just performing.
Acting classes.
Yes, acting. I've done it before, and I realized that I want to keep people focused, give them the same sort of entrance into the art form that I had, which is to focus on the craft itself, not the business, not the fame, but the craft, because the greatest relationship you'll ever have is between you and your work. When all others are losing their heads about you, as the poem says, and you are steady, you need to focus on your work. When others doubt you, focus on your work. When you're not clear about how to move forward, focus on your work and be a real craftsman. And I would like to impart on actors the reminder that you are a student of your craft and you are a student of human behavior. So your work is closer to that of a psychologist than a performer. Create the role so strong in your heart and your head that it induces the behavior. And that's a high level of acting for me. So when I get the chance to teach it, that's how I do teach it. And when you are doing art on a high level, it is the closest thing to that saying that you are in the image of God. It's the closest thing to spirituality for me. As in the book, I talk about the awakening I had with my spirituality as I lost my mother. And I realized that it had it all along. The struggle I have with faith was really in the work that I did. And so teaching is spiritual, the work is spiritual, and I look forward to doing that more as I move forward in my career.
You say art is a place when we can ask ourselves about where we fail, where we succeed, about where do we come from, and where do we have to go now, not only entertainment.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, what thoughts are to the individual when you reflect on your life, your journeys, your triumphs, your weaknesses, what type of man you want to be, what type of man you've been, how you're going to change it for the better. What those thoughts are to you, art is for the community as a whole. It's the place where we reflect on who we are, our strengths, our weaknesses, where we hope to go. It's where we declare what our values are and then act on them. And that's what I learned. That was the epiphany that I learned. I was documenting just what I did after this horrible disaster of the flood of New Orleans. And in that, I discovered and was reminded of the power of art. When I did Waiting for Godot, turned to my neighbors and friends and people who had come to the play on the sacred ground where so many people had lost their life, and said, at this place, in this moment in time, all mankind is us. Let us do something while we have the chance. And that was a cathartic thing.
Yeah.
It's classic because it was written by Beckett here in France under occupation. 70 years later, it was so authentic and so truthful and so human that it spoke to me and so many others after the disaster of New Orleans, understanding that we can't look for something outside of ourselves to save us. Look for that power within. It was a call to action, just like it was 70 years ago when Beckett wrote it under the duress of occupation. It spoke to the people of Sarajevo.
Yes.
When they did a production of it with Susan Sontag. And that's the thing, that's the forum that art thrives in. It's not just entertainment. Entertainment is a residual of art. But true art is the forum where we collectively as a society reflect on who we are, declare our values, and act on them. And it also connects us across time, space, Beckett, to Wendell Pierce in New Orleans, to people years from now when we're gone, will understand what that message is in Godot. It's when you stand in the middle of Musée d'Orange here. Musée d'Orange.
Orange, l'orangerie, peut-être, maybe.
Orangerie.
Orangerie, yes.
Orangerie, ouais.
Yes.
In that oval room, and you look around, in the paintings of Manet, it's as if you are in his eyes. 100 years later, and seeing what he saw. And long after we leave, that art is of such significance that someone will stand in that same room years from now, after I'm gone, and able to see the beauty around them that Monet captured, a century ago. That's why I'm an artist. It's that connection of humanity and that power where we can reflect on who we are, because then it defines who we are, and then we can act on it. It's a call to action.
Can you describe for us quite precisely what were the reaction of the people in the streets of New Orleans when you play Waiting for Godot in the ruins? How many people were there?
We had
more or less.
We had about 300 people at each performance. And being on that hallowed ground and in that moment, all of us being affected by the storm, losing property and our homes, and some people with family that they had lost and friends that they had lost, we shared a common distress. And it was a shared mourning, a shared sadness. And it was a comfort to share with them that belief of, in this place, in this moment of time, all mankind is us. Let us do something while we have the chance, as a call to action, but also it was a sense of peace, of comfort, that you're not alone. This is a shared experience that we're all going through. And it's what we commonly refer to as a moment of silence, a memorial. Let's not forget the people that were lost where we are. And people took the time to take that in. And if we really thought about it, people took the time to understand the message of the play was, we have to move on and we have to rebuild if we're going to honor the people that lost their lives here. That's the best way to honor them, is to make sure that their death is not in vain, to improve our life, the life of the city, and rebuild and make sure we do everything that it never happens again.
Yeah. Can you tell me more about those radio documentaries you made at what, the age of 16? To tell about the...
Oh, the radio?
Yeah, yeah. You, at 16, you want to tell the story of black people?
Yes. Well, I wanted to get on the radio. And that's how I started. Was in the radio. And we thought it would be great for Black History Month to put together little public service announcements about different musicians, different artists. We put some together about Langston Hughes, George Mingus, Miles Davis, and behind it we had milestones playing. Bup, 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 bup. That was our little theme. And me and a friend, Eric Eli, Lolis Eric Eli, wrote these PSAs. Charlie Mingus was a bass player in the jazz movement of 1945. It was really bad production because we couldn't understand how to control the music. You know, so as the music got louder, we had to get louder. And I brought it to a man by the name of Brute Bailey, who was at the radio station WYLD in New Orleans. And he said, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 16. He said, "The fact that you thought you would be able to put this together is the most amazing thing." He said, "It's a great idea, but it's really bad. Let me teach you radio." And so I started going there on Saturdays just to get into the production studio and practice putting together commercials and cutting and editing and practice going on the air. And then one day he asked me to go on the air. And that was my summer job. This is Wendell Pierce on the Music FM 98. It's 20 minutes after the hour. And you're listening to...
Extension from Congo Square.
Extensions from Congo Square.
And I've read that the show began with you saying something with a very white voice.
Yeah, well, that was an example of it.
Can we hear it?
That's it. This is Wendell Pierce on the Music FM 98 WYLD. It's 20 minutes after the hour, and you are listening to Extensions from Congo Square. The merger of technical proficiency and expressive thought. That what we call here in New Orleans, jazz.
That fast?
That was my jazz show.
Okay.
And I did that on Sundays for a couple of hours. It was my first job in the media.
You could have been a radio host if your acting career had not working so well.
When I was studying at Juilliard, I was so, I guess, insecure by the time I was graduating. That's what I thought my career would be. That I'd give it a shot, I'm probably never going to be hired, and I'm going to go back to New Orleans and be on the radio. And that's it.
And it not.
And then I got a job, an acting job. And actors always go through this sense of, what's the phrase? An imposter syndrome, that people are going to find out that I'm really not that good. I lucked up and got this first one. And then I got another job. And I was like, oh, I really lucked up. Now I got two. They're going to find out that I'm bad. Then I got another job and another. And so by the end of the first year in the business out of school, I realized, well, wait a minute. Contrary to what I'm feeling, I might be able to do this. So I gave myself a year. I was able to work. And then at the end of that year, I made one of the biggest decisions in my life. I told myself I'm a professional actor. And it seems like a small thing. But so many people, so many artists never just tell themselves, I am. I always stop people when they say I'm an aspiring actor. I'm like, no, either you're an actor or you're not. Employment doesn't define you as an artist. And that's important to know when you're unemployed. That's logical. But even when you're employed, when you're doing bad work and people are saying, you're great, you have to be honest with yourself and say, no, I'm working a lot right now, but that's not good work. And so that's how I started.
The show I host here on Radio Nova is based on readings and at night. So, do you remember by heart any small part of Waiting for Godot that you can share with us, maybe?
I think that was it that I just shared with you. You know, at this place, in this moment of time, all mankind is us. Let us do something while they have the chance before it's too late. That's the thing that haunts me, that one line.
Do you remember?
But if you do readings, I think of the chorus of Henry V, which is a call to action also. It's a call to have people listen and hear what we're about to say. And that's, oh, for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention. A kingdom for a stage, princes to act and monarchs to behold the swelling scene. Then should the warlike Harry, like himself, assume the port of Mars, and at his heels, leashed in like hounds, should famine, sword, and fire crouch for employment. But pardon, gentles all, the flat, unraised spirits that hath dared on this unworthy scaffold to bring forth so great an object. Can this cockpit hold the vasty fields of France? And may we cram within this wooden O the very cask that did affright the air at Agincourt. And let us, ciphers to this great account on your imaginary forces, work, suppose, within the girdle of these walls, are now confined two mighty monarchies whose high upreared and abutting fronts the narrow, perilous ocean parts asunder. Piece out in your thoughts our imperfection, and to 1,000 parts divide one man, and make imaginary puissance. Think, when we talk of horses, that you see them printing their proud hoofs in the receiving earth, for 'tis your thoughts that now must deck our kings, carry them here and there, jumping o'er times, turning the accomplishment of many years into an hourglass. For the which supply admit me, chorus to this history, your humble patience pray, gently to hear, kindly to judge our play. That's the only recitation I can think of right now.
Thank you. That was amazing.
That's the chorus, the beginning of Henry V. It's about the Battle of Agincourt between England and France. The Dauphin and Henry V. Famous battle that, unfortunately, your country lost.
As a child, you used to go in the country with your parents, listening in the family car to poetry on the radio.
Oui.
I mean, poetry by O.C. Davis and Ruby Dee.
Yes.
And you wrote in the book that when you were young, reading was the norm. In middle school, the main questions students used to ask each other was, "What are you reading this day, man?" So this is my question. What are you reading this day, man?
The Hillbilly Elegy. I keep forgetting the author's name. It is a book that describes the Scotch-Irish community, which we commonly refer to as the hillbillies of the Appalachian Mountains in West Virginia and Tennessee and Kentucky.
In the 30s?
These are poor, it's the poor, rural, white community of America. And these are the people who are excited and moved and embracing the politics of division now espoused by Donald Trump. And the book is talking about why his message appeals to their nationalism and why his message, which is ironically against everything that would help them, why it moves them so much, and the pathology of the way they think, because of the conditions that they are. And I'm reading it out of a desire to understand how someone like that can have an influence on people. Not because I see them as an enemy or anything like that, trying to understand what their concerns are, that would make them follow and adhere to someone who is, who I think is abhorrent, who's awful. So I'm interested in trying to understand my fellow man. So that's what I'm reading right now. And that was the great thing about growing up in a society where your peer pressure was, keep working, better yourself. It wasn't someone putting you down because you were trying to be a better actor or be a better musician or be a better writer, or you were into your schoolwork, you're trying to learn more, trying to get the wealth of knowledge that you want. It was celebrated with the circle of people that I was around. And you know, you can see by who they became, Wynton Marsalis and, you know, Lolis Eli, who's a great writer, and Harry Connick Jr., and, you know, people like that who really saw practice and research and study as a way of broadening your scope instead of it being something that should be, you should be ashamed of.
If Donald Trump gets elected president in the next weeks, what would be your first reaction, not only as a citizen, but as an artist?
The first thing would be a feeling of shame, because I know I didn't do everything possible to move people to see a more broad perspective about life. If he becomes president, it says more about the indifference that people had to the dangerous rhetoric that he talks about, that we're making the same mistakes of the past, assuming that it's just talk, when really it's dangerous talk that can lead into more dangerous action. Because if he had the power to govern and put into law this, you know, ignorant rhetoric that he's espousing, to ban all Muslims, to deport 11 million people out of, it would be destructive to the very fabric of America. It would say to the world that we aren't serious about how we choose our leaders, or that we've lost our way to choose a leader like that, especially after we showed the world over the past 8 years that we don't have to be imperial and militaristic. We can actually be diplomatic and thoughtful and intellectual. And that's the leadership that we actually put into power 8 years ago in the form of Barack Obama. And so it would confuse people in the world to say, you have such great power economically and militaristically and military, that you would choose someone like that to lead you. It says a lot about your values. So my reaction would be, I need to do more. I thought I was doing enough, but it's not enough. I tell the people who say, let's move, and I was one of them. Like, if he became president, I'll just move to the Bahamas, was my choice. And then I said, I've been thinking about it. I said, no, the closer it gets to the election, if he becomes president, that would mean I would have to engage even more. So
Okay.
that would be my act as a citizen, to engage even more. I'm already making a statement about whoever the president will be by what I'm doing in Baltimore. The social justice movement of the 21st century is economic development, and that's what I'm doing, bringing economic development into underserved communities. That was my answer to the Baltimore riots, is to actually bring a $20 million economic project to Baltimore. My response as an actor, my response as an artist, I've actually already made a response. There's a recording I did with Delphio Marcellus called Make America Great Again.
Oh yeah?
It just came out. And it's an ironic take on what he thinks is making America great again. And I remind him of, in this piece, I remind everyone of the irony of people who espouse the greatness of America. And I talk about how America was not as great as people say it was, with this take on slavery, and how people wanted to secede from the nation, and how people wanted to thrive with imperialism and taking over, and the racism and the misogyny, and reminded of all those people that had to rise up and be revolutionaries against that. It's a wonderful piece over music narration that I did, which is ironic and humorous piece called Make America Great Again.
On this piece of music, do we hear you sing or talk about the music?
It's a narration.
A narration.
Yes.
And the music is out?
Yes, it's out right now. You can get it online. Delphio Marcellus, and that's the name of the album, Make America Great Again.
Great.
And that's the title track. So that's my comment on it, artistically.
2 last questions. Every man got to have a code, as Bunk and Homer used to say. What's your code as a man and as an artist, to sum up the conversation?
As a man, I would continue the mantra that I learned from my parents. Kant died 3 days before the creation of the world. Don't ever tell me you can't do something. That's my mantra as a man. And right now, socially, as a man, the social justice movement of the 21st century is economic development. And as an artist, it would have to be, employment doesn't define you as an artist. It's very easy to understand when you're unemployed. You have to keep faith that you have a great relationship with your work and you're doing good work, but nobody's really given me a chance yet. Employment doesn't define you as an artist. In that case, it's unemployment doesn't define you as an artist. But when you are employed, and you may be doing something trivial, reality TV, something that obviously is just trite, and you want to do something that's a little deeper and more meaningful, you have to be able to look yourself in the mirror and say, employment does not define me as an artist. Even though you're making money, even though you're doing well, even though you're getting the accolades from critics in the media, you have to be able to say to yourself, as Shakespeare did, to thine own self be true. And you have to be truthful to yourself and say, while all of these good things are happening to me, I don't think I'm doing good work. I need to focus on that. So those are my mantras.
Last question. You're a big jazz fan, growing near Wynton and Brentford Marsalis. May I ask you to recommend one track and only one track? We got to listen very loud to think about those codes you told us.
Love Supreme by John Coltrane. It's uniquely creative, beautiful epistrophe, I think, is this track. I forget the title of the track. Bo 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 ba bo ba de bo do de bo do de do de bo be bo 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 be bo 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 be ba bo ba bo be bo be bo be bo bo be bo bo be bo do de do be bo be bo de de. That is spiritual. That is not defined by anything else but its uniqueness and its beauty. And that is so difficult to produce and do. You could tell that Coltrane said, it doesn't matter, I can do it.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce.
Thank you.